London, and of course LBC presenter, it's Clive Bull. Clive, it's so great to have you as part of today's festivities.
Well, it's great to be here. It's been a fascinating event so far. We're halfway through at the moment, and I said at the beginning I'm not the expert, but I've hosted lots of phone-ins, and I'm learning a lot and seeing things sometimes from a different point of view as well.
I mean, how important do you think events are like this that bring together landlords with industry stakeholders, policymakers? I mean, everybody, the private rented sector is very well represented here today. It's a really good platform for debate and discussion and understanding and learning.
Absolutely, yeah. I think what's really struck me is the enormous amount that's going on at the moment. I think you really need more than a one-day conference because there is so much changing and there are so many issues. And I've just been talking to some of the delegates, some of the landlords who are still saying, so hang on a minute, we've got this, we've got the licensing, we've got the 3-year contracts, we've got the housing court. I mean, the list is almost endless of the changes that are going on. And we haven't even got into things like the tax regime as well, which is clearly affecting a lot of people.
Absolutely. Now, your show, Property Hour, you hear from landlords and tenants, you hear both sides of the story, and you said on stage earlier that you're quite surprised at some of the stories that come out, and there's a lot of rhetoric about rogue landlords, and they're the ones that get all the spotlight.
And obviously, the rogue landlord, whatever the definition is of that, and there are some out there, but they're clearly not the kind of people who would come here to learn about how you do it professionally. But in terms of the calls that I get to my programme, both in news programmes and on the Property Hour advice hours as well, what I found a real eye-opener was that I thought by asking the question, tell us about your problems as a landlord or a tenant, I'd get all tenants ringing in, moaning about sometimes probably very justifiably, but they didn't. There's just as many landlords out there as well who have had their own bad experiences. So there's very much two sides to a story, and you often don't hear the other side of the landlord who's been scammed in one way or another.
Absolutely, indeed, and that does need to be highlighted because many landlords' lives are actually ruined by tenants that rack up massive rent arrears, destroy properties, but you don't tend to see so much of that in the media. No,
you don't, and I guess it's just not a sexy story to get in the media, really, is it? I think the rogue landlord, I'm not saying there aren't, I mean there are problems, but that's what gets the headlines. And there are many, many very satisfied landlords and tenants. In fact, that's what everybody wants, is a good relationship.
Yeah, we do. And you said you'd been mingling with some of the landlords here today. I think it's great to have you here as the host because you're not a landlord yourself. You have a great interest in property through your shows, and you can see our sector with fresh eyes. What is your impression of our sector, having met landlords here today and met the other speakers?
Well, the people I've met here today I hope are representative of the whole sector because they're really professional, they want to know how it all works, they're looking to the future, looking at future legislation, they're keeping tabs on everything, and as I said, there's a lot to keep your eye on at the moment. But they want to do a good job. That's the overall impression I've got, and they're not out there to take advantage of anybody, and that I think speaks volumes for the RLA as well.
And they care. They care about their tenants.
Yeah. Many landlords I've spoken to have talked about how they don't want to or need to evict anybody because they want a happy tenant, and they often don't put up rents even when they should do because they'd rather leave them there, and that's something I've heard over and over again today.
Well, we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Residential Landlord Association here today, Clive. Have you got any message that you would like to say to the RLA for the next 20 years? Will you be engaging with them further, do you think?
I hope so. I think it's going to be never mind 20 years, even the next 2 years is going to be very interesting.
Fantastic. Well, as I said, Clive, thank you so much for being part of today's event. It's been really great to have you here, and thank you for being part of the interview as well.